Thesis is Writing Her Story, a phenomenological study examining the intersectional identities of Black women in educational leadership.
Problem of practice number one, the lack of women and women of color in leadership positions. Although men in leadership have been studied quite extensively, women, especially women of color, have been largely neglected in both theory and in research development until only recently. Some popular textbooks may devote a chapter or two to gender, but even then they tend to overlook the impact of race and ethnicity on one's capability and ability to lead within an organizational setting. Problem of practice number two, barriers to the advancement of women in leadership. Now, women predominate at the lower to mid-level managerial ranks, but they're only marginally represented at the executive levels. Did you know that women comprise 51% of today's labor force? Yeah, we often refer to that as a glass ceiling. Other terms include sticky floor, concrete wall, even the word labyrinth is now being used to describe the uneven path of progression of women as they advance towards leadership. Problem of practice number three involves issues of equity and intersectionality. Ladies and gentlemen, let me dispel the myth for you today. Equality and equity are not synonyms. Equality is when everyone receives the same thing. Equity, however, is when everyone receives what it is they need in order to be successful. And intersectionality, well, that word describes the biological and societal factors that intersect, such as race, class, gender, etc., and how these overlapping elements create and perpetuate cultures of disadvantage and discrimination for those on the receiving end. Which brings us to my current study, a phenomenology, qualitative in nature, one in which I examine the lived experiences of Black women in positions of ed leadership. Let me tell you, these women are the phenomenon in my phenomenology. And why is that important? I'll tell you why it's important. It's important to me, as a burgeoning leader myself in educational leadership. There are plenty of implications. I want to know what these women did. How did they navigate through that labyrinth? How did they crack and burst through that glass ceiling? Why does it matter in education? Well, education is a different type of sphere. Women comprise 51% of the workforce, but in education, 75%. Educational leadership, less than 20%. That's why it matters. Why does it matter to all of us? Given the cultures that are pervasive within leadership and educational leadership, given the barriers and successes that are unique to women in positions of leadership, given the issues around equity and intersectionality, including the fact that we now know equity and equality are not synonyms, given all of those factors, I invite you to join me in the discussion around promoting the advancement of women in leadership and, most importantly, closing the leadership gap. Thank you.